Doesn't make it too much. to roll the dice to decide who acts as chair tonight, unless there's a volunteer.
That's easy.
I think he lost. He looks like he's capable.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can do it.
all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Are we good, Alex? Alex, all good, okay.
Okay, and we'll call to order the April 24th
Yeah.
Cottonwood Heights City Architectural Review Commission meeting. The meeting, let's see. Does anyone have any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest to disclose? Okay, hearing none. We'll move on to business item project SPL 25001, which is a review and consideration of a request by James Carroll on behalf of Cottonwood Compounding Pharmacy for a certificate of design compliance for exterior work on an office building located at 7076 South Highland Drive. Does staff want to review this?
Yes, yeah, I'll pull up the presentation I made here. We also have the applicant in the audience today, as well as the business owner. So if you would like to ask them questions, they're here to speak on their project. Let me just share my screen and then we'll have it up on the big screen for you to see.
Scott is 5 minutes away.
Okay. And as always, the color and everything is a lot better on this screen back here, but I'll have it on both for convenience. Let me see if I can zoom out just a little bit. Okay. Like Commissioner Allen said, this is a SPL 25001 application for a certificate of design compliance. Despite the SPL prefix, it's not a site plan review. We're just considering it for a certificate of design compliance today for the exterior alterations. This property is located at 7076 South Highland Drive. There's a context map on this slide. Kind of shows it's just south of the Fort Union Boulevard intersection on the west side of Highland Drive there. Just show you some pictures of the office building as it exists today. This is just pulled from Google Street View, I think from a few years ago. This is the north and east facade. So if you're driving on Highland heading south, this is what you'd see on the side of the road. This is what you'd see if you were driving north on Highland. So this is the south and east facade. And then this picture is really narrow, but this is what the site looks like today, kind of at an oblique view. So you can see the west wall is pretty blank. There's not much going on there. And then the parking lot is in the rear. And then this is also included in your packet, but here are some elevations of the building as it exists today. Note that there's no awnings over the doors. The entire facade is this sort of cinder block color like you saw in the photos earlier. Yeah. So the applicant's requesting modifications to the facade in these 5 categories. They want to do wraparound siding on the first floor along the west, north, and east facades, not the south. That would be a dark gray color. And while I'm speaking, maybe I'll pass around this color board that the applicant put together so you guys can see what those look like and some of the design inspiration for it. They also want to paint the cinder block wall on the south side of the first floor and on all sides of the second floor. They want to do like an off-white color that's shown on that color board there. They would like to add new awnings that are dark bronze color to the north side entrance and the south utility doors. They want to repaint the roof, fascia, and gutters to match these new awnings. So another dark bronze there. And then they want to add sconce lighting that's compliant with the city's outdoor lighting ordinance building. So it's pretty small on these screens. Might be easier to see in your packets. I can also zoom in if you like, but this is the proposed new elevations with the remodel included. You can see the wraparound siding is included on all sides except for the south elevation. And then the awnings are added as well. There's some lighting details, but yeah, you can kind of see the changes are material in nature. And then this is just a scanned photo of the design board that you're passing around. It's also in your packet as well. So staff found the proposed modifications to the exterior of this building are consistent with the city's design guidelines for the Gateway Overlay District, which is why this projects coming before you because it exists in this gateway overlay zone. However, on page 4 of the design guidelines, the document does state that architectural details and colors must be consistent on all visible walls. So to satisfy this requirement, we're recommending that you add a condition of approval to extend the first floor siding around the southeast corner of the building to cover a portion of that south elevation. It's visible from the Highland Drive public right of way to better meet that design guideline. So this is just a figure I put together to show something that would be compliant to the design guidelines. The applicant just proposed the wraparound siding on the east wall, which is this one, the north wall, and the west wall. We think that if the siding was also wrapped around a portion of the south wall, that it would comply with the city's design guideline document.
What are you calling wraparound siding?
Yeah, I'm not sure what that means.
So they want to do something similar to this, where you have this sort of siding material. The applicant can speak better to exactly what that would look like.
It's just continuing that first floor treatment around the corner instead
Yeah.
of cutting it off right on the
So on
corner.
the elevations here, you can see they want to do this sort of siding treatment on 3 sides of the building, but not the south. Part of that is exposed. But the design guidelines requirements, we think would be satisfied if they wrapped it around a portion of the rear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, what material is it? Is it almost looks like stuck on siding or what is it?
So it's cinder block right now, and the
Right.
siding, I'm not certain, the applicant could probably be able to speak to that. You could ask them. I think there's something written on the board as well. I'm not sure if it's the material, but there's some details that are clarified on the backside of that board. What was that?
It
Commissioner?
says stucco.
It says stucco. Okay. So I'll move forward and we can maybe ask the applicant about that if you'd like.
Yeah,
Does that sound good? Okay, so I'm not gonna go through you guys' procedure and authority because you're probably very familiar with this, but basically, we're just considering this project for a certificate of design compliance today. Not site plan approval. There's no changes on this property to the site plan, so we're just looking at the certificate of design compliance today. To kind of sum it all up, based on our findings and analysis, we recommend approval of the project with the condition that they modify those plans to include the proposed siding on the first floor south elevation to an extent that satisfies our design guidelines. So I'll kind of turn the time over to you if you want to ask the applicant to come up and speak to the project, or if you have any questions for me and Mike.
I'm the chair, I'll start.
Sure.
Sorry for being late. I got held up and tried to call Mike and anyway, long story, but any questions from the commission and still until
Yeah, I mean,
we invite the applicant, anything for staff?
yeah, try to kind of understand that. So basically, they're proposing to take this block building, which it is right now,
Mhm,
and then wrap something on the first level
mhm,
around it
mhm.
on 3 sides
Yes,
and.
And paint the building as well.
Yeah, which seems a little. I mean, it doesn't seem to hang together, so maybe they can talk about, why they didn't. Maybe. Develop the. 1, 2 side, whatever, completely all of it. Versus. Something that is attached just on the lower level and it still is a block building beyond that. And anyway, maybe, maybe the owner can also tell us what that material is. Is it a stucco we're looking at? Is it,
what I'm seeing on the backside of that color board that they prepared for you, that I've scanned into your staff report, is painted hardboard siding or hardy board siding.
yeah,
I don't know exactly what that is, but
hardwood siding, yeah,
Cement board type?
yeah,
oh, cement board.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can maybe ask the applicant more about that, but
okay.
that should kind of illustrate the material for you.
Any questions specifically for staff or should we have?
So you said on the south elevation, are they gonna do it on the south or not?
We're recommending that they include a portion of on the south that's
Oh.
visible from the public right of way.
Oh, okay.
That's what the design guidelines require, that any portion visible be required to have, I can't remember the exact wording of the design guidelines,
So
but
four-sided design,
four-sided
so
design.
so not cutting the materials off right there, especially where it's visible from the right of way.
So that's why we're including that recommended condition. Their current plans don't have that, but we think if they wrapped it around, they would satisfy that requirement.
Yeah, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and add anything they would like to add to staff's report. The applicant here.
Yeah, if you guys want to come up to this side, then once you're seated down, if you could just state your name for the record and your. I know one of you is the business owner and one of you is the applicant for the project, so.
James Carroll and Associates, applicant for the business owner.
Kevin Woodsman, owner.
So, real quick here, I emailed it to Ian, but maybe not seen it yet. We changed that south elevation to wrap the paneled siding like that. And then also what we'll do is we'll paint the rest of this the exact same color as that panel siding. So the entire first level will be the same color.
Is that cream? Is it kind of a cream color or what?
So this is a real good picture here of what we're at.
Oh, okay.
Here's the actual.
And the stucco was a mistake on,
You're gonna go dark on the bottom and
yes,
light on the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
just as close to that.
So it's all hardy material?
Party board material on the lower level, the cement fireboard, because it's concrete
Oh,
block
those-
as it
those look
is,
like
CMU, and then,
Solid panels there. Is it stucco in between? them?
no, there's
it's
no,
not stucco.
no stucco.
Oh,
That was a
okay.
mistake on the early, so we've updated this to
Oh, okay.
reflect just
Okay.
painted material
That'll be
and,
better, don't you think?
yeah.
Yeah.
Stucco.
Yeah.
And James, I just saw your email, so thanks for sending that over.
Sure.
Thanks for bringing it in person. I think that, I mean, I can't see it super well, but it seems like that would probably satisfy the recommended condition that we added. So
The lower right is the,
I think so.
I'm just gonna jump in. I think our goal has always been four-sided architecture, and I think it's not gonna look correct without extending the same treatment all along the back, that back wall. And it's adjacent to a driveway on the lot next to it. So my recommendation would be that they continue the same treatment for the entirety of the wall.
It's not that very big building. How many square feet are on one floor?
about 2,000.
2,000, yeah.
It's just.
So I mean, it's not a ton of expense, of course, it doesn't cost.
If you guys want to modify that recommended condition to include it along the whole facade, I think you'd be within your bounds to do that.
It's heavily vegetated along that side, so I don't even know if you can see.
There's not, there's a fence that goes up way high. and
Oh,
it's
the
all
fence
covered.
is there too, yes.
Yeah, and it's
That's
all
right.
covered in vines and we're gonna clean that up, but
So
Yeah.
what up above, then what is there then? That's the
So
existing block.
the existing block will be painted a cream color, a real light.
That's
Like we had on that. picture.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's,
Mhm.
Kind of a chamomile.
In the packet or somewhere, I know it came from the owner, it's the wrong color.
Oh, is it?
It is not, well, the color called out
Uh-huh.
on what was submitted. The number, not sure when was this, anyway, is the color of her, sticky note down there.
Oh, like the lime green.
We're not doing that. So again, that's been updated on.
That would be an interesting look.
They're gonna just keep,
So it's kind of an off-white paint that you'd be doing to it.
Are you sticking with the same windows or are you gonna put grids in them and complete the look?
No,
No,
same.
that was your intent.
Yeah.
Okay.
but it's a new roof then.
Not a new roof, the roof is in great shape, a good metal standing seam roof, so we'll use a high.
Oh, that's a metal roof right now.
Yeah.
You're gonna paint
Are
it?
you gonna paint it?
Yeah.
it looks like a Pizza Hut. driving. I want to change that.
It's, you know,
Yeah,
you see that.
compound your barbecue chicken.
Yeah.
That's the existing.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
color are you painting the roof?
A bronze.
That was
the,
dark bronze, you said?
kind
right?
of more of
Bronze
a
color?
charcoal bronze
Yeah.
type look. And the metal, the new metal awnings will match it. And they're metal awnings, not fabric.
Where are the awnings at? I'm just on the,
One
One's
is,
back here.
yeah, just on the back where nobody will see it, but it's over the entry or exit door there, and then the main entrance.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we were over there doing construction in the winter time and that snow just comes down. It's pretty dangerous.
Right there on
back
the
if you
front
don't
door
have-
has double door.
It'll be just a
single
single door on the new.
Yeah, it's, I mean. Now, looking here as architects for it a bit, I just found it to be. Rather, heavily done below and then just block above. And, one thing we would recommend maybe that at least this get continued up. That you get more of, this building here that you show, but that continue up. To break that horizontal line, but get some vertical lines into it, but this is a major element.
Well, sure, accentuates the
Right.
entrance.
Yeah,
And I don't know if, another element would be to do the corners potentially. So if you were to take the same kind of idea, at least extend up the corner. I mean, the other one is to do it all in the same, and you're not gonna do that, I
No.
guess,
I
no.
want the two.
And so recommendation would be to at least emphasize the front of the building, so it looks like. It hangs together, it's not just the first level that got. Remodeled and the rest of it got just paint.
And I would say wrap that around the side
Mhm.
of that whole piece that comes out.
I could see that pop out. I don't like it on the corners. We're after what's in this picture. And it's more of the old style
Mhm.
buildings that you see. in-
maintain the same, yeah.
You see that a lot on. More authentic, I guess it's more of a
Like
southern.
here where it just wraps around the same.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it's like.
I think what you
Well,
suggest is
If
good. though.
that right there, and what Scott's saying, then on the southeast, which face the street, right?
Mhm.
Um, maybe just do another piece like that continues up. So
Both the
you-
east and the west, so. it
Yeah, east
wraps
and
around.
west it's not a total wraparound. I mean, if it is,
I-
I'm trying not to make the whole building
I
covered
think
now.
it needs to be here
Mhm.
and then.
Oh,
That
that-
piece
returns.
and that piece where
Okay,
it
okay.
returns
Oh, I
back.
thought you meant wrap around here. Yeah, no, definitely a wrap around that. And if you did the corners, now you have tied the building together.
Well, and that's your opinion.
Well, that's why we're here.
Being in architecture, I don't know, I like the look that they're after. And. I don't, know.
What's your opinion about this element, having that?
Well, I don't mind this.
Yeah.
I
Gotta do that.
because that is the main entrance.
Yeah,
You do see it coming down the
Yeah.
street.
My goal is to make it functional. My wife usually makes it pretty, so
Yeah,
she's not here. today.
and she's not here to defend.
She is. So she would definitely have some opinions.
yeah, you're gonna have hell to pay if it doesn't work out.
I know, so make my life a little bit easier.
I think if we had done a colored rendering, it would have
Yeah.
helped a lot
Yeah,
in hindsight, but in that picture though. I don't know if I have other photos, but
Yeah.
probably not.
Or do you,
Just like bringing it up on
I am.
corners, I don't see it bringing it up on
Yeah.
corners.
because that helps, yeah.
And then
yeah.
it just seems
But, well,
Do
at
you think
least,
things would come up the corners? I don't know. I
I
understand
don't
what
know,
they're
it's
saying.
just,
Trying to maintain this,
yeah.
I think if you bring it up here, if
yeah,
you bring up the corners, you're gonna go in the whole building.
yeah,
It's not a very big building.
yeah,
Cause I was gonna say it's not.
at
a
least
big
the
building.
front.
I like
you know,
the entrance.
At least the entrance,
Defined.
so you get some vertical, you break that horizontal line back.
Yeah, I thought that was good because you get this element right here.
Right,
That's the
Yeah.
most visible. The other face,
you
the
get,
east side, you have the sign, so that
right,
kind of breaks that
right.
up, but.
yeah. And the existing window stays and no new frame around it or anything.
No.
No.
You mean new frame around the bottom? Like,
No,
because they have to
the-
build
the
it
top
out.
window, the top window,
No, they're just building out for the fascia.
and these window just stays,
Mhm. Yeah, she'll have a return going back into them.
yeah.
And, yep,
Repainting frames, I can't remember.
Where you putting your signage, the name of your, are you gonna put it, is that on that, would that be up above that?
Yeah. it's
Oh, it'd be
above.
on, facing on the
east.
drive?
Mhm.
Okay.
but that signage is not part of the application at this point. That'll come back to us if we.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, on the color board, I know it said no signage proposed, so we just,
Oh, okay.
we didn't
Okay.
include it as part of the application.
Okay.
So it may have to come back for approval, but
And actually, I would say, you know, making that kind of important as a signage. You know,
Mhm.
maybe even expand on it. So to have, picks up some of that architecture down below.
Mm-hmm.
That helps
That-
again to
yeah.
break the surface
Yeah.
Yeah.
rather than bring, yeah, okay. So I mean, if the center portion here and this sign is laid on, having some. Connection to that end of the building, I think would tie it together.
And the same on that, although you don't see it from the street or public way, from the parking lot on the back, there'd be a
Yeah.
sign there also in
Right.
that area.
Yeah,
It's funny how you show the detail and the grids in the windows and there's a French bakery right here. and-
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there
Stones and.
doesn't, yeah.
So I do think one thing that is going to be important if they extend that up is figuring out how those grids that are in that pattern extend up. So
where,
Mm-hmm.
see how these
It's,
grids come through
oh, sure.
and extend up,
You'd
so
probably do
we're
these
gonna have
sides
to
more like
look
that
at that
one,
with
yeah.
the,
Well, because then,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
with
mean,
the
it's,
relationship of
these
the
are-
grids
Yeah,
on
those-
the boards,
Yeah.
they don't
They
exactly
don't
match up.
So-
That's why it's like, we left it there,
Oh.
because if you,
I would recommend
that.
it. They,
then you're
If
offsetting.
we
all of the
recommend-
Grids in there.
that they approval based on these changes, I would recommend to submit an updated drawing for the chair, me to review and just make sure
Mhm.
they've addressed that.
Yeah, because when they originally built it, everything is kind of off center. If you can see the front picture of that building,
There's windows
the
that don't line
windows
up.
don't line up, so I don't know. We were screwed at the time, because like the windows don't,
it's not the prettiest building in the world.
it is not, we're trying to make it prettier.
And I do think it'll
It'll
be
be an
better.
You see now they're doing that office building down there with Conwood Mall, where you ZCMI used to be.
Oh, yeah,
Those windows don't, none of them match up all the way
Yeah.
around the building. It's
oh, yeah,
really interesting.
yeah.
So
I
by
mean,
having the entrance, see where the door is, you want to center it.
Yeah.
But if you look at the grids on here, they don't line up to the grids up here at all. And that makes everything off center.
Yeah.
Can you put it, I mean, do you want it in the center?
Could you
Double
do a
doors?
side light instead on just the single side on the left,
Or,
so that you could balance it versus a side light on each side
Or-
of the door?
well, I mean,
They're not
the
painted.
question is, can you put a new door in here? Is that
It's gonna
work?
be a new door. There's double
We're putting
doors
a
now.
new, yeah, there's double doors out. We're gonna have.
But
a
this
door,
is
but we're
a
not changing
single,
the opening.
but move it over to the center.
Then you're tearing out center block and restructuring the building.
And there's a staircase there, so we can't.
Oh,
It-
that's the staircase, yeah.
There's
Yeah,
electrical
this is
staircase.
a common lobby.
Oh,
So when you walk in, then you go to,
that staircase, yeah.
and there's a staircase that goes to the upper floor.
And so.
Major, I mean, steel and
Yep.
staircase and exits.
So that complicates the relocation of the front door. and then you-
Yeah.
The front
Okay,
doors
so
off.
that's just the
The
existing building.
expansion.
Yeah.
Like, maybe down the road, we might throw an elevator in for the upstairs. And it lines up directly with the front door. So that's kind of why we wanted to keep everything like that.
Is there no elevator in that building?
No. Although they made them put a ADH regulated bathroom upstairs, which I think is weird.
Interesting.
Oh, that was so smart.
It doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
Okay,
But we've tried to make
Alright.
it more symmetrical with the.
Any other questions or comments? With that, I'd entertain a motion from the commission. I think what I've heard that we're recommending is that they extend the treatment on the lower floor all the way around the building. And then they also add that treatment to the front piece that comes out as, and where it returns, and then that they bring that back to the chair to review before it finalizes.
Yeah,
That's it.
I'll make a motion to approve project SPL 25001 with the conditions stated, with the hardy material extending along the proposed south elevation, as well as extending on the north elevation at the entry pop out and returning on those two returns. And then the applicant resubmitting an updated elevation for the chair's approval and review.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, I just want to double check. Did we ask at the beginning if anyone had any ex parte?
Yep.
That we need to review. Wonderful. So we'll move to item 2.2, project SPL 25-002, which is review of the first site specific building permit and development application within the PDD 2 zone at 6995 South Wasatch Boulevard. This building permit, file number BP.25.0120, comprises of the site's eastern hillside reclamation, a 7-story apartment building, and the primary public roadway through the site. With that, I'll turn the time over to staff for their report.
thank you. I'm going to try to move through this fairly quick so we can get to the discussion. This is a little different than normal ARC reviews. Normally you're reviewing for the Gateway Overlay District Ordinance for Certificate of Design Compliance. This one, you're actually, the scope of review is similar, but there's specific items called out in the site-specific ordinance that require ARC review prior to building permit issuance. So phase 1 of the project is the hillside, the roadway, and the apartment building. That being said, there's some kind of layering approvals here where the hillside reclamation has been thoroughly engineered and approved from a technical standpoint, and that includes requirements for, you know, where the trail is located and hillside vegetation and how that's watered and irrigated, that are derived strictly from a geotechnical engineering standpoint. So flexibility there is going to be pretty limited by the ARC. And then the main roadway has received civil approval from the Public Works and Engineering Department. So the ARC scope there is going to be, you know, contained to what's been approved already, kind of within that envelope. Things like landscaping details and aesthetic things are certainly on the table. And then the bulk of the review is going to be the apartment building itself. The massing, the unit count, the density, things like that have already been entitled. So your scope is really to look at the design of it, the materials, the colors, et cetera.
The site's a done deal, isn't it?
The site's been entitled, yep, since 2021. The site has entitlement, so the uses and the locations and the massing and the heights and all that
You
are.
see the retention that they're putting in right now.
Yep. So they're well underway on hillside reclamation and site grading. So I'm going to run through with that context, let's see. Okay. First, I'll start with the overall site plan, just so we're all on the same page here. Those that were here last month, we talked about the condominium building. It's the same project. That condominium building has been approved by the city council. That's phase 8 of this. So that'll come back, you know, down the road for you to review in more detail. But we're looking at the apartment building. Tried to highlight it there. That's the scope of review tonight, is the central roadway, the apartment building and the hillside. But the overall project, again, already entitled, is this 20-acre parcel, 8 different phases. It's a mixed-use development project. So phase 1 is this residential apartment building. The next handful of phases are all gonna be a variation of commercial, office, retail, hotel type uses that you'll see each phase as it comes in, and then eventually the condominiums. On top of that, because this is a building permit level review, they submitted a, 700-page plan set that is under review by the building department, by the fire department, by our engineers for all the technical code compliance things, and that progress is underway. The ARC approval is required before zoning can sign off on its portion of this review. But that's not to say there's a list of many other things that they're already working on. Given that context, I'm just gonna walk through what the site-specific ordinance requires in terms of ARC review. And I'll walk through these quickly until we get to the stuff that warrants more discussion. First of all, it requires submittal of a site plan review application, which they have done. No more than 300 total units. And it can be less than that, but has to be within 10% less than that. Their final unit count is 296, which complies. Parking ratio, minimum parking ratio of 1.5 stalls per dwelling unit, and they net out at 1.54. 455 total stalls with 343 in the 2-story structure that the units sit on top of, and then 112 outdoor stalls that predominantly fall to the east of the building behind where the building is. Total building height is, it's just stories here. It's well under the maximum building height in terms of, a vertical measurement, but it's 5 unit floors over 2 levels of parking.
How many stories is it?
7 total. Compliance with adopted development plan, that's that overall site plan I just showed. Again, the building is where they said it was going to be. So in general, yes, it does comply with that, but we're here to look at that on a much more technical scale. And then we have some additional site standards, and this is where we layer on the ARC's authority with the engineering approvals and everything else that's already been done. One of the requirements is that there's a continuous sidewalk at least 8 feet in width along collector and arterial streets. There's a small portion of the main road through here, north of the apartment building where that sidewalk is not quite there. I've spoken with the applicant. They're not overly concerned about it. So we think it's something that can be worked through and corrected, but we just need to see that sidewalk at 8 feet instead of 6. Large portion, even in their plans, is 8 feet or greater along that frontage, but there's a stretch that is only 6.
Now, is that all, concrete surface, or is it with plant strips in it, or?
Yeah, so I've got the zoom in here best I can. If we zoom in, oh, that's not moving. Should I open this in Bluebeam? Anyways, down in this this area over here to the right of that highlight, they've got, sorry guys.
Is parking underneath it or?
Yeah, they've got a park strip sidewalk. They have a whole cross section. Maybe I can just show you that down
But the
here.
8 feet is
8 feet is sidewalk. So
Pure
there's some
sidewalk?
space, so we can eat into the park strip. We can eat into the space on the outside of it. I don't think it's a huge issue to get to 8 feet on that. And then once you get south of that first major roundabout, it is 8 feet. It's already compliant there, which is right in
Well,
front of where
I'm
all the
just-
buildings will be.
just say it is 8 feet of hard surface, or is there some landscaping in part of that 8 feet?
Yeah, it's a good question. It says sidewalk. From a staff standpoint, if it's a walkable surface, I'm comfortable with that. If it's, if part of that is hardscape that's in the park strip.
It's just that 8 feet is pretty wide.
Wide.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if, rather, if there was some green element to it,
Yeah, so they do have a landscape park strip of 5 foot park strip there
Okay.
between the sidewalk and the road.
so it's 5 plus 8.
That the standard just says 8 foot sidewalk. It doesn't give us a right of way standard, but what they've proposed in their cross section right now is 5 plus 6. And they just need to get that 6 up to an 8 foot walkable surface.
I still don't understand.
So you're requiring 8 feet?
That's what the site ordinance requires, yeah.
There's no landscaping required.
But I
in the
mean,
ordinance.
but if some of, I don't
There we
know,
go.
some of that can be used as green, yeah, stay right there.
Yep,
So.
that's their cross section.
So you have, what is, How wide is that, cross section with the person standing?
6.
That's six.
So that 6 is what by code needs to be 8. They do have a foot of space on the outside of that. You know, they could go into that park strip with a treatment there. I think a hybrid option, if the ARC would prefer less straight concrete and some mix of, you know, pavers or something else using part of that park strip, I think that's fine.
8 feet is pretty common for major corridors. Actually, 10 to 12 is becoming more and more common. 6 is the old standard. It used to be 6 feet for a multi-use path. And everyone realizes that's just not enough. So that's where the 8 feet comes from. I'm very comfortable with the 8 feet. My preference would be to maintain the 5-foot park strip. I think anything less than 5 feet becomes very difficult to plant, especially when you're not doing turf. And if you want any trees in there, like they're showing, 4 feet is really narrow. So my strong recommendation would be to have them extend that 8 feet into their own property as opposed to the right of way.
Yeah, so that's noted. Again, the extent of that correction is fairly minor. It's just this first element. When you get further to the south, then your cross section, I'll scroll down to that, is much wider. You've got a 16-foot park strip kind of area and then an 8-foot concrete sidewalk. And that 16-foot park strip does have the angled parking within it. So that's not a continuous 16-foot park strip, but it is, you can see from curb to edge of sidewalk, you've got some angled parking and then some wider kind of plaza space out by that
There's
roundabout.
Really no park strip there.
Not by the parking, but that's,
Yeah.
we did want on-street parking here for business access on
Yeah.
both phases. So that was, the city's comfortable with that.
Well, I mean, that's a whole other, are we dealing with the landscaping eventually or?
We're
Yeah.
dealing with it today.
Yeah, if you'll look at
Okay.
landscaping.
Whoa,
So we'll get to that. I will touch on the only other sidewalk comment that we had. There's a standard that requires sidewalks that are adjacent to perpendicular parking have to be, I think, a minimum of 7 feet. They're 5.5, so they'll need to widen out some of those sidewalks around their parking area.
Would the city entertain just, instead of making the sidewalk the 7.5 feet or wider, moving it and having a little landscape strip between the back of curb and the sidewalk?
If it complies with code and the applicant is amenable to it, I don't have a problem with it. I don't know what the grading is in there, so we can invite them up in a minute to speak to it. I think there's a minimum, 5-foot minimum width. So if there was a separation there and it wasn't directly adjacent to that parking, that could be a solution as well.
You're typically, what you're trying to do is the car will typically overhang 2 feet.
Yeah.
And you're trying to maintain a 5-foot walking
Sure.
area.
Sure. No, that's great. We'll just roll through these quick. So yeah, some standards there regarding sidewalks that we've gone through. There's a requirement for 1 deciduous shade tree per 30 linear feet of walkway. If you measure out the total walkway, divide that by the number of trees, they do comply with this. There are a few sections where there's some gaps where it's not every tree is 30 feet apart. So we're recommending that you look at that and provide some feedback to determine if those gaps are acceptable or if we should kind of rearrange some of the trees there.
And I was hoping that staff could point out where
Yeah,
those locations are.
let me
when
go
we
to
plan.
the landscape plan. So one section is under the label L201 between the last tree and the first roundabout there. There's some gaps. Now we do want to be sensitive to vehicle visibility there. So I'm, not overly concerned on that. And then there's a walkway along the back here. This rear walkway, it's not a primary walkway, but it does say all walkways should have, trees every 30 feet. So there's some gaps along the back here.
And do you know what, so it looks like they've got paving along that band right in there where they don't have the trees.
Yeah,
So how much space, are those a 4-foot grid?
that's should we invite the applicant up now? Okay, you guys want to come up? I don't want to say the wrong thing.
How's it going?
Welcome, thank you for
guys
coming
with
here.
us. I'm Sarah, Jake, Anthony, Jake and I are with Rockwood.
Could you please state your first and last names and spell them?
Yeah.
Yes, Sarah Nemelka, Serra, Nemelka. Jake,
Jake Parkin. Parkin.
Anthony Lyman, Lyman. And the Beecher Walker.
I get something strong.
maybe we start with, we'll back up and go to sidewalks. Happy to comply with the sidewalks, happy to deal with the 8 feet. We'll work with Mike to sort that out. We thought we were already past that. We had worked with civil, we have approved civil plans. That's not a problem. We'll get that sorted.
Thank you.
You want to touch on the internal sidewalks? Are you able to add a buffer there?
Yeah, so it's probably worth noting first, comment was just made about grading, especially in the parking and. So where the L2.04 is, that is a massive grade change, a big hill basically that goes up there. So there is quite a bit of grading, quite a bit of slope. You can kind of actually see it. There's pretty good contour lines on this. So slope and grading are gonna cause some issues in those areas. So along where Mike's cursor is currently, that is kind of gonna be a little hard to show, but basically a sidewalk like this and a sidewalk that goes down so that we have entrance into the building as well as the sidewalk along the parking. That roundabout, and we would invite you to go up and look at the site from Gun Club Road now. You can see that not a roundabout, sorry, that cul-de-sac is already stamped into the ground there. So you can kind of already see that. And the retaining wall is already kind of being built in there. So we do have the grading plans. That's kind of already going in. So that space does become tight with the grading. We
So
obviously,
you got a sidewalk and a concrete
we
wall.
do, yep.
Do you know what the grade elevation changes?
I don't off of the top of my head. It looks like those contour lines. Oof, I don't know. I don't want to make an uneducated guess.
Just to be clear, the retaining wall is between the sidewalk and that other square grid.
So there's a massive retaining wall right here that's
Yep.
being built currently that you can see
Yeah,
now. There's a very small retaining wall right here,
yeah.
very, very small. And that's where the kind of grade shift will be like this. You'll have the upper sidewalk and then that lower
Mhm.
sidewalk, if you will.
And then Sarah, like you mentioned there, that's also where the garage entrance is.
It is,
So,
that's correct. So,
2-lane.
2-lane garage entrance
Garage,
here.
yep.
There's a 2-lane garage entrance here as well, and each level is locked, so there's no circulation within the garage to the other levels.
So my thought on that area right there is clearly you want to maintain an accessible route
Yep.
to go through there.
Yep.
I would put a couple trees, just like take out one of those blocks, two of those blocks, one for each tree in the pie shaped piece.
That here?
Yes. And, like take out like that square and put 2 trees in there.
And just to be clear, those are the ones that will be lower down, so you're
Yeah.
kind of putting those down into, the ditch back
I'm-
towards the building.
I'm assuming they're not gonna be more than 30 inches
No,
because you
it's
don't
not.
have a railing along there, so
Yeah, it's a small.
You don't have a railing?
you don't need one if it's less
Yes,
than
you
30.
do.
I
36, right?
believe it does have.
No.
Or is it 18?
18, I mean, it's. Oh, no, a great change.
Thirty.
Yeah, well, anyway, we won't,
Yeah.
I mean, architects will figure that out, but
Yeah.
no, you need a railing.
I'll state for the record that we would meet whatever we would need to, if there was a railing
Yeah.
necessary, we're not trying to put a dangerous step.
My point is,
Yep.
you're not showing a railing,
Yeah.
so the height is not super big. I think it would work to have a couple trees in there. And if you wanted to, you could put them in a tree grate so that you still can walk around them if you want that. And then on the other one, it looks like they're just spaced. It's just a spacing thing, so I think it doesn't appear from what I looked at that there's any breaks in that park strip, that the park strip is just a continuous park strip all along there. Is that correct?
There will need to be a future one for the condominium building and potentially the hotel there.
So that
We've
is
got those
a
plans
really
lined up.
important thing, because if they're gonna have a drive in there, I would rather them have the spacing right now to accommodate that drive.
I can't remember, is this Wasatch Boulevard? This isn't the present Wasatch.
No, this is a new
it's
road.
New Wasatch
Right,
Boulevard, sorry,
yeah.
that's a little confusing.
Yeah, and that's, I guess that's east of, have to be east of it.
East of the
Yeah.
current Wasatch Boulevard, so maybe really quickly to address your comment. So the current hotel footprint sits here and there will be no access to the hotel off of this, what we call Upper Wasatch Boulevard. So no curb cut here, happy to add the tree, happy to leave it out if you feel it's a hazard for cars. We would go either way. The condo, it has been left out of this space because that is our intended drive.
And what about, it looks like there's a wider space just left of the L right there.
Again, it's been left up in the air because we don't have plans. It's possible that that becomes parking as well. So happy to add a tree and take it out and work with you later, happy to leave them.
The one thing on the roundabout, you know, to try to define the edges of it, like the trees or something, because that's a big open area. I don't know, you're not planning on trees around the edges?
I don't believe the roundabouts currently have trees in the landscaped areas.
It's, my understanding is that whole parcel is gonna come back and you don't know exactly what's gonna be in there, so you're putting the trees in the parkway and then you're gonna come back and do the remaining landscaping once you develop that parcel.
Yes, if you're referring to the condominiums or the hotel, the answer for both is you're correct. Yep. We don't have applications in for either. We just finished that PDD just to get the text
So
amendment.
the entrance to the condominium, what are you saying? That would be.
It'll be in here somewhere.
Yeah, they're looking at either having an entry here or an entry here, and that's why you have.
No, I'm talking about,
Odds.
while you there, right there, yeah,
Right
right
here.
there. Yeah, no, right there where you pencil this on the other side too, you know, and on the other side to the top, defining that edge.
Yeah.
It's defining the roundabout with a tree promenade.
This section here with the little shapes in it is a little like plaza, public, you know, trailhead area.
Is it gonna be called Upper and Lower Wasatch Boulevard?
No,
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 It's just the continuation.
We could confuse everybody and leave it like that. if
Got
you'd
too
like,
many
but
already.
No, no.
I mean, it's like,
It hasn't been named.
yeah, I'm going upward today.
I think we need to work with the city on a
Yeah.
name and, yeah, work with the neighbor.
Yeah.
For now, we'll just leave it confusing.
Yeah.
Look, bottom line with the trees and the sidewalk, we're willing to work with you guys. We're not trying to make this hard or difficult at all. I think for the hotel and the condominiums, you'll see us back here. We'll want to work with you in the future on an entrance. Happy to move around trees, not trying to be
So what are we
obstinate.
looking to,
We are making sure they comply with the ordinance. And that's ARC authority in this case. It typically is just part of the building permit review. You don't usually see some of this stuff, but this is a unique case.
yeah,
Another option would be
Yes, it is.
to wait on some of these trees until those phases come in. So we don't plant trees and then have to rip them out and move them.
Mike, you bring up a good point. What's gonna end up happening with some of these phases too, and we're already working with Mike on this, is some of these phases, we'll put applications in and we'll end up bonding around improvements that we're not going to be doing because we're not gonna wanna build them twice, right? So we'll come back to you and we'll get approval for the condos and we'll make sure that landscaping is perfect before we go and build something and pay a lot of money for that.
my feeling on those trees where we're not meeting the requirement is it appears to me they're not meeting the spacing requirement, because if they do, then they're gonna have to come back and rip them out.
Yeah,
And so I would defer to. They have the right number of trees, it's just a matter of spacing, and so I would defer to staff to work with the applicant, figure out where the drives are gonna be, and then space the trees appropriately around that. I don't want them to go plant trees and then tear them out. My preference would be plant the tree, figure out where your driveways are gonna be, where you can live with it, plant the trees now and get them growing.
Okay.
So, I mean, does that mean you're gonna develop in trees and everything and then come back and do construction behind the trees? Or,
No, I think that's the point, right? Is that we'll bond around those improvements. So we'll work with the city to purposefully
well,
not.
you just commit to do it, what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
And bonding for, but I mean, you wouldn't wanna have trees out there where the condos are, that's a construction
during
area.
construction.
No,
So,
absolutely not. Yeah,
okay,
Yeah.
I mean, so they're not gonna plant them, we're gonna see the condo and we can talk and,
They're gonna agree to agree, huh?
yeah,
Okay.
no, it's.
We will not be, defiant on the trees. We will,
No,
we will
no.
make sure the trees are planted. That's why we have the right number, just maybe not in the right.
Can you go back to that? point?
Oh, yep, sorry, Scott.
So my biggest concern that as I look at this, it was really important when this came through originally that we had a really nice streetscape. And one of the things that makes the streetscape nice is having planting on both sides of the parking stalls. You have the trees in there, which is great, but you don't have anything on the ends. And I would like to see, yes, like come in this area and create a planting area with the tree and shrubs, so that as you come through here, this parking is screened and it looks green all the way down, and the road feels much more narrow.
Yeah, we'd be happy to add landscaping to that. I think if you look down that corridor, all the other ones do have that, and especially on kind of the far right side, all of the other ones do have that landscaping, and it's worth noting, and again, I hate to be like so ambiguous and like we're coming back, right? It's kind of an annoying answer. These are two future retail buildings that will come back, and they're gonna have their own landscaping and their own pads, and we're gonna update everything accordingly as well. So I'm happy to put a landscaping requirement in here. That's not a problem. And it'll probably be, again, kind of a similar story to the condos where we would likely bond around it and not build it right now, because we don't want to then trample it.
Yeah.
When we go back for the retail buildings.
So Mike, the way I'm looking at it is our limit of work is basically the backside of that sidewalk,
I think,
more or less.
yeah, that's
For
what,
today,
For phase one, yeah. Mhm.
for today, and then anything else beyond that
It'll
will
come
come back.
Yeah. And then the arcs, the vision of this was the ARC was gonna review each phase to make sure all the phases are complementary to each other. So it doesn't look like 8 different projects, right? That was kind of the intent of this, how this was set up. So that's great. I'll continue.
On this piece, how many contractors? Is there just one contractor?
yeah, at the moment it's one contractor, and the plan, so the guys who are moving dirt now are going to do the apartments.
Who is that?
Rimrock Construction.
Oh,
Mhm. Is it possible that there are future contractors on other future pieces? Yes, it's possible, but at the moment, we're working with Rimrock.
Just to continue on through the ARC's purview here, all pedestrian walkways shall be within view of at least one residential unit's living area. Based on review, there's units on all sides of the building. We find this to be compliant. Internal sidewalks shall be raised or separated from the street or drive aisle by raised curb, landscaping, or other physical barriers. Plans show that there's curbs separating. It's not a, flat entry, which makes sense. And then an open space phasing plan for the entire project area. Their phasing plan for landscaping matches their phasing plan for development, so they're the same phasing plan. And then we get into site-specific landscaping requirements, compliance with the development plan. Again, in general, yes, the things are where they said they were going to be. Some benchmarks here, 60% of landscaped areas are vegetated. Subject to, there is a metropolitan water easement through a portion of this site, not so much in phase one, but a little farther to the north. But regardless, the applicant's landscaping plan includes 66% coverage in landscape planting beds for this phase. Ground level landscaping equal to at least 25% gross land area. This current phase is 48%. A lot of that, I believe, is hillside, but it's still technically ground cover. But that is substantially compliant here. And then there's some provisions regarding, making sure the visual backdrop is vegetated with ground cover and vines and shrubs. And we again do find that to be compliant. Additional standards for the types of trees and how much there is. So 12-foot trees, 2-inch caliber conifers, some other standards are every 200 square feet of paved courtyard plaza areas. There's a reduction eligible in this if 25% of the ground plane is vegetated. So they have 48% of acrite ground cover, which would allow for that reduction. And they've provided 35 total trees, which is 50% of the total trees required based on coverage. So they're offsetting 50% of the trees required with the substantial amount of ground cover landscaping they have. Given the constraints of the site and the topography, staff finds that to be reasonable for this phase. It appears to be well designed. Sustainable, water efficient, context sensitive landscaping shall be used. These are all drought tolerant and context sensitive species. The applicant stated in their response to this question, they've selected native plant material reminiscent of the natural hillside. That hillside itself has some pretty tight restrictions on how much you can water it for it to, make sure
The part that
the
they
reclamation plan works.
graded, and then they've got, it looks like some retaining. The part that they've graded, what are they gonna put on that? Foliage or-
On the
north side?
The
Yeah.
hillside,
The hillside, it has
Yeah,
its own
it's kind of going
extensive landscape plan. The majority of it is ground cover. There's a handful of shrubs. It's not dissimilar to the plant material you're seeing here. I'd say it's probably a less intense. The idea there is really to take the natural hillside and just bring it
Yeah.
down, right?
Looks like they dropped it down quite a bit. and
I
then-
think a big portion of that is where the condos will go too.
Oh, is it?
if I know what you're referring
Yeah.
to.
They're gonna grill it on
You're gonna
the hillside.
excavate back into the hill then, right?
Oh,
With the
so it'll go
condos.
back into there, to the back of the, okay.
Yeah, we gotta build
Build
it back
it
up, cut and then fill.
Yeah.
the takeaway here is all the plant species are water-wise, low water usage plants, particularly on that hillside because of stability requirements.
Are you doing any supplemental irrigation to get those established?
That's a great question. I, off the top of my head, don't have the full hillside landscaping plan kind of in tuned and dialed. That's already approved and kind of in works with the phase that's going. My gut reaction to the question is yes, there's already been an irrigation plan that we've worked with the city and engineering on. But I don't know kind of the fine details of that plan.
If I recall, that went back and forth with our geologic hazard consultant, because we want the plants to be established because
Right.
that acts as hillside retention, but we don't want them to be overwatered because that takes away from hillside stability. And I think they found, that was a 4-year engineering process
Right.
to get everything down. So they do have
They've
a
talked.
process in place
Yeah,
that
they-
satisfies the 17 engineers that are involved with that.
I think the reason I was like so hesitant to answer is because I think it's complicated and there's some plants that maybe are, some aren't, some areas that are, some aren't, right? It's very nuanced.
The other landscaping requirements are fairly technical regarding tree types, but we find them to be compliant with the minimum standard required by the ordinance. So unless there are any questions on that, I can carry on. I might save the architectural plans for last because I suspect that's the most in-depth discussion on the actual architecture and colors of the building, and design and materials and things like that. So I'll come back to that and just touch on these other two. They had some signage plan standards. The signage for this phase is pretty minimal. Wayfinding signage, a branding sign on the building and parking garage entry signs. They all seem to comply with the development plan and the city sign code. So no major concerns there. And then written summary of sustainable development practices utilized within the current phase. The applicant has stated they have a consultant they've used, a green
Yeah,
consultant.
we hired a green consultant to make sure we'll hit the Energy Star standard at the minimum, make sure that we're using green practices and throughout the building.
They've got the water efficient landscaping, obviously, and then they have we noted two things in our review, which was electric vehicle charging capability within the building, which they've got 8, is that right? 8 stalls that will be 8 chargers, and then some additional that will be wired for that in the future. And then a bike locker within the parking structure for tenants to store their bicycles. So we feel they've done a pretty good job on responding to that sustainable design requirement.
Is that sign stalls or is it open parking?
Yeah, right now it'll likely turn into an assigned parking garage, so fully secure, access controlled, key fob entrance. Likely given kind of the size of the building and necessity for parking, it'll likely turn into,
So it won't be overloaded from other areas that can come in, okay.
yeah.
There's a standard in the PDD ordinance that says if it's a exterior surface lot, there has to be an ability to accommodate public parking or, shared parking across the site. If it's in a structure, it can be private parking.
Yeah.
And then I'll back up and then turn it over to the ARC as quickly as possible so I can stop talking on the actual compliance with the city's architectural design guidelines, as well as the PDD 2 specific architectural design standards. I'll scroll through some of the renderings here and then kind of tee that up for discussion between you and the applicant. These were provided in the staff report and in the packet, but the site-specific design standards, they say some things in here on materials and color schemes they're going to use, earth tones and, colors complementary to the natural environment, steel, wood beams, concrete, glass. There's some limitations on vinyl siding in the PDD 2 ordinance. I don't think that's an issue on phase 1 here. And then just some representative images. And these were the design standards established back in 2021 as part of the overall site. But I'll just scroll through the inspiration here. So you can see what was approved and then switch over to what's being proposed. You can see actually in here, the hotel is the Canyon Center, the Courtyard Marriott that's at the Canyon Center was used as precedent. So you can kind of see some of what they were going for there. And then let me share a rendering. I've got elevations and profiles and anything else you want to see I can bring up as needed, but I'll just share the visual rendering that was provided and then turn it over to the ARC for discussion. So this is that rendering. This would be from the southernmost roundabout on the site. So as far south on the site as you can get looking back up at the front of that property. A few things to note here. The parking structure is covered by at least street fronting townhome type residential units. You can see the exposed concrete as you get to the other elevations, but at least on the public facing side of that, the structure is mostly covered except for the entry. And then just of note, this is that 7-story structure. This will be very visible from the public right of way. So this will be, front and center in terms of visual impact, from Wasatch Boulevard from within the site. So
A material that goes up like about 3 stories, that looks like it's faced with stone or?
Yeah, so kind of 3 key materials that are worth noting on here. The stone that you just pointed out, we kind of went with a homage to the concrete plant a little bit and paying homage to this area. This was a gravel plant for forever, so That is kind of the color that we chose for that stone. I'm not gonna lie, the rendering is not doing us a ton of love with the wood hardy on here. It's looking a little orange in this room. But the idea here is that kind of orange yellow is meant to be a wood hardy, kind of looking more natural, a little less golden than it's appearing here. So we could show you guys other projects we've done with BWA. Good example would be like North Union. We have a project Layton Station that has similar product. We've used like a Nichiha hardy, which looks like a beautiful wood paneling. So the idea there is to have a natural wood paneling. Complementing that wood paneling is also a brick. And then kind of the grays to kind of tie it all together. So
What is the stone?
this, we haven't picked the exact material yet, but right now it's just let me look at what we've got.
Above the stone is hardy plank or
I think we
what?
just called it out as stone
Yeah, I
at this
thi-
point. I don't know
I mean,
what would you typically put up with it?
Is it a precast?
El Dorado
Is it a-
Yeah, El
Great.
Dorado
Great.
stone.
Great.
Is it a precast or natural or?
Yeah.
Precast,
Cultured stone.
precast, concrete stone, dimensional. Is it large pieces or, what size?
This one says rough cut, 1.5 to 1 inch grout lines, through toned. Leor Valley, El Dorado stone.
Well, not 1.5 inch grout line.
That's, yeah, there's the gaps between the stones. It's a pretty wide gap, but the stones themselves are roughly football shaped.
1.5 inch gap? I don't think so.
Half to one.
Half to
Half to
one, yeah,
one.
okay,
Sorry, 1/2 to 1.
yeah. So. So I mean, what we are doing is looking at the massing and potential color, but this is really not, the final look. We
I-
don't even know where the materials are, right?
Well, this is building permit, so what comes out of this approval is what gets built.
I think what I meant to say is we don't have a subcontractor who has established the exact rock material. We have established this will be a stone of this type and we will give this material board to a
But-
subcontractor. That's more.
Haven't the architect specified the
Yeah,
material?
and you guys have the material board. Mike has that in front. I don't know if
I can
that's.
share this one if you'd like,
So all materials have been specified and detailed out.
maybe. There it goes.
Are you, I'm sorry.
Pardon?
Well, that doesn't really tell you much.
You know what the gauge of the metal panel, especially the wider one that's 11 inches flat. From experience, I was screwed by a subcontractor that snuck on 24 gauge at a 12-inch dimension and it oil canned and looked awful. So you should really try to avoid the 24 gauge and get the 22 gauge.
It's pretty thick. I think it's actually at least 20, as I recall.
Or you should add a seam that makes it so that doesn't have a hole.
That was gonna be my rec. Usually we add the seam. We've done that on 2 other projects and it's worked really well for us. And it's been a longevity thing for us as well. We haven't had the oil canning, no issues with that.
Yeah.
The oil can, it sucks in or something, or?
I think it's warped. Yeah, it looks.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Mhm.
I don't know
Probably
if
shouldn't have
vinyl
said
does
screwed
that.
on the record.
Yeah, it immediately looks damaged.
Yeah.
Thanks. I really felt that way. They snuck it on the project.
That's
Yeah.
terrible.
Without the general contract even knowing. Yeah. Yeah, I was so upset.
And immediately you could tell that it
Yeah,
was just.
we told them to stop construction and but because of timing, they had to keep going.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't even want to look at the building.
Not that this is a public meeting, but you could tell us who that was, so we don't have to deal with it.
You don't,
yeah.
So, Mike, I mean,
Yep.
you're saying, you are looking at building permit drawings right now?
Yes,
So they have complete drawings,
Yes, full building plans.
but.
We can
these
scroll
are-
through
these are
all
very
600 pages
schematic
with you.
renderings, you know, that I would imagine that you would have some better renderings that are.
We have elevation drawings. Those are in your packet. I'm happy to pull those up if you'd like to see those.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah, Anthony's also here and has the 3D model. We submitted the whole 700-page set, so you guys have everything. We have the 3D, we have. The schematics were the only ones that were included in the packet, I believe, but we.
so we've got these. They're hard to see on this screen, but these are all,
Did you say the brick is located like on the townhome portion on the?
Yeah, it's
bottom?
pretty hard to see because it's a
Okay.
small picture, but yes, there's brick kind of throughout and really it's at the streetscape level. The idea is to give that pedestrian feel.
Okay.
I'm happy to show you kind of on this screen if that helps zoomed in.
you have renderings, you have 3D renderings of this?
Yeah.
These are working drawings, so,
yeah, this is the plan drawings. Yep.
6 or 7.
well, I
can
mean,
show you.
I call them working drawings, yeah.
Let's maybe. Yeah, let's show the rendering.
We'll need to add you to the Zoom, so if you can give Alex your email address, you can just walk over and give him that, and then we can get you on.
While they're doing that, this is more of a zoomed in, so you can see
Okay.
the brick that's kind of accompanying the hardy board
Oh,
material.
the vertical?
Yeah. the
Okay, got
vertical
it. Yeah.
brick. Mhm. Sorry, you guys can pass this too. It's not.
That's okay.
More vertical gray.
Yep.
Mhm.
Looks nice in that picture.
Yeah, and even the stone too is so much easier to see, like in that picture. It's hard. They're big buildings, so it's a bit hard to translate sometimes on the small screens, but.
Yeah. They'll have you sign it. While he's doing that, I can show you the building, the massing, so you can see the articulation in it. That was in staff report. You can see there's some recessed, kind of rooftop, I guess, limited common space amenities, one on the front facing, the public right of way, and then one on the back side. The pool is tucked back in behind the building. It's kind of cut off across this angle here. That's a fault hazard area. So the massing was kind of done to break up the visual, but also to avoid the fault line.
So is this a 5-story wood structure over concrete?
That's correct.
Okay,
And then with that too, we've got 2 stories of townhome units that wrap that
but
podium.
that's part of the concrete structure.
Yep.
Yeah. So on the condos, I think, no, there's not condos, they're apartments. I mean, what's the sizes? Are you,
Of the units,
yeah,
we've got a variety of sizes, so ranging from studios to 3-bed town units. The rentable square footage on those range from about 560 square feet up to 2,200 square feet. So they're quite nice.
okay.
Yeah.
Further to the north. And that same facade.
So, I mean, is this sort of setting the architectural pattern and colors for the other buildings, or are they gonna be quite different?
I guess the answer is to be determined, all within kind of the design requirements of the PDD.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, so they all have to follow that general design
yeah,
guideline.
but I mean, you could still have quite a different
there
to
could be
it.
variety within that, yep.
And that's, yeah,
I think our intent would be to have it all, I mean, the intent is for it to.
To be a
jive
village that
and to-
jives,
yeah.
yeah.
That'd be complimentary.
it's,
but
is
not-
some of those buildings, you gonna own all of them, or are they, some that is contract like the hotel, would that be separately owned?
It's a great question. At the moment, we own all and intend to develop all. If we get an awesome flag with an awesome hotel user and, you know, there's possibility, right, we would consider it. Is
Okay.
it possible that we work with an awesome retail pad user who wants to purchase and that's more advantageous for all of us? We could consider it. So I think, again, sorry, I'm kind of being ambiguous in all of my answers.
No, no,
We don't have designs nor plans for any of the future buildings, and that's why I'm kind of limited in my answers.
Right. Well, it's like the Canyon Center, you know, they went that direction with different ownerships
Right.
and so forth, and hasn't always worked
Yeah.
out, so.
At the moment, we're holding it close to our heart and we hope to develop it moving forward, and then we'll
Okay.
see how it works as it
Right.
grows.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, that helps to
East
get some
side.
3D renderings.
Is this on the backside?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so you're kind of up in that cul-de-sac now, you're looking down into the valley at this point. The leasing office is pretty cool. It has a podcast studio, sauna, cold plunge behind it. It's a pretty intensive space. It's really a cool amenity.
Can see
area.
this fence right here on the right side, that's where the pool is located.
Yep.
in the spot.
So material again, you're talking about this stone,
Yep.
which is a precast stone of some sort, right?
Yep.
You have the, you said brick,
And we've got stone, brick and hardy, and then stucco will complement kind of throughout.
It's all the hardy, is all vertical.
The metal panel.
Yeah, so that's a metal panel. The hardy.
Oh, that's a metal panel.
Yeah, the hardy is intended to be kind of, to look like a wood material throughout
Uh-huh.
the project. So I'll lovingly.
Which
refer
one's
to
the
that as
hardy, the orange,
The orange, uh-huh.
orange brown? or what?
Yeah, yes.
It'll look less orange, that's our.
Gold, wood, renderings, gold.
I think it's kind of nice to see a little bit of an accent in there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
I don't mind the
Yep.
don't
color
make it
either.
all gray,
Yeah.
no, we won't. It'll be,
yeah,
it'll be more wood toned than orange, I
Right.
think is the goal.
well. It's kind of nice actually, that has a little bit of an accent.
It'll be a mid-century modern wood then.
Yeah.
That wood for the deck.
It is, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, the decks are gonna be really cool. They'll have a mix of materials. Again, North Union is kind of a good example of this, if you're able to walk out on those decks. We're kind of utilizing materials to create placemaking spaces, so there'll be a combination of turf, wood, tile. We'll have kind of an indoor-outdoor fitness center, outdoor yoga facility. We'll have, you know, places for hammocks. So the decks will be really awesome. Programming will be amazing. That is an old pool rendering. We'll call that,
Vastly different.
yeah,
Looks much better.
we put quite a bit of money into the updated pool rendering. So,
So that area that we were just looking at, is it in the space between? Or
The
where was?
pool-
That kind of
Yeah.
plaza that you,
the plaza area you were looking at is actually kind of that nook
Back,
up into in between the units up on that plaza deck. That's where you were looking. The pool itself is actually going to be built into the hillside off of the podium
Mhm.
parking structure, kind of by the leasing lobby.
sense.
Well, that's interesting.
yeah, hang on to that, so that's, what are you gonna do with all this stuff in the back, that's the old gravel pit?
Well, we don't own any of that. We don't have any,
You don't own it?
no, so. everything
Walker
you
own it?
see
Yeah.
here, none of that is ours.
That's part of Walker's?
Yeah.
Wow, how are they gonna reclaim that behind you and not destroy you?
Well, they're gonna go through a lot of, well, okay, how are they gonna not destroy us above us? Great question. We've gone into great care with our hillside grading and retainage to make sure that we go up to their property as is, and there will be kind of a nice road path that they have up to that, and it is up to them to. maintain
there's a big, some of the fail, I don't know what they call, it, you know, when.
Mhm,
you
the
have
fines,
Washouts.
the
Yeah.
washout tailings.
Yeah, they wash out, if there's behind you there, right?
Yep.
So
All
we
that
actually,
needs to get torn out eventually.
a lot of the washout fines, we are actually utilizing with them. So a lot of that's coming down now to help rebuild the hillside. So the kind of mountain, if you will,
Yeah.
that you feel like is probably teetering
Yeah,
over our site
yeah.
Mhm.
is actually kind of being leveled out as we speak.
So you're using that then?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay,
So I think that's maybe like the visual thing that looks scary on the site,
Yeah.
their site now is actually being taken care of.
Mhm.
But again, my hands are tied. I don't own the property. I can't speak to what they're going to be doing.
Yeah,
with their
yeah.
site. I don't know if staff has had
Yeah,
any
do you guys know
applications.
what Walker's doing?
We don't have an application yet. They'll have to go through the same engineering reclamation process and tie into that and meet all the factors of safety and go through the same process that.
So they're gonna be
Wasatch
years
Rock
out, right?
Well, I mean, they're operating this year
Huh?
then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Walker,
Yeah, limited operation, but farther to the south.
well, I mean, right now they're still doing asphalt, so I assume they're still operating.
Yeah, a lot of the actual
They're not,
excavation has shut
done.
down, but the processing is still
Yeah.
happening.
so, yeah, well, we did do a study on that, remember, but kind of died out on us, but I'm not sure it would have done much good anyway, but.
Yeah, I know they're working with the state on the public parking structure that's envisioned there, so they are working on things. We just don't have a formal submittal yet.
But we're kind of digressing here, but the Upper Wasatch Boulevard that you have
Mhm.
is obviously one that's gonna continue through, right? Isn't that the concept?
We have required Wasatch Rock to stub that into the property line. City ordinance states that you stub into undeveloped land, and then when that land develops, you try to make that
And
connection.
so there is kind of a major road out there.
And that main road will be dedicated and become a public road. The
Oh, really?
other offshoots in this project will stay private, but that main road will be public.
So basically the two roundabouts and that main road.
And it would end out where? At the south end of the?
Just at that
Walker's?
intersection, yeah, just,
Well, yours is just at the,
that road,
yeah,
this will be where the public road starts and it ends, for now right
but
there.
then it'll continue. Well, I hope.
That will be the
Okay,
exercise when that application comes in.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And whether there'll be a, yeah,
So that land that I asked about's got those stripes on it, and
That's where the condominium is.
Okay, because that's where the condominium.
That's now entitled, yep.
yeah.
That'll act as a giant retaining wall.
So. So we approving, certain amount of landscaping. Which is.
Yeah, the building and site landscaping, and we talked about the trees, got good
Right.
feedback there.
And then on
And
the
then this-
building.
The
it's,
building design and architecture.
It's the overall material concept. The design is there. Right, I mean, um,
Yeah, I mean, they're entitled to a unit count and a height,
Yeah,
and they've
yeah.
kind of maximized that in response to the hazards.
it would have been nice to see some steps in it or, less boxy, but you've done that to get the units, right? So,
And I think unfortunately Mike hit the nail on the head. So we had a different layout and we had a lovely fault line up here. So we had different steps and a different layout, and so this is what we came up with to maximize the site plan, given the topography of the site.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's obvious attempt to get the units and get, but it would be nice to have seen some steps in it.
You have an overall site plan that shows like the top, like looking down what you see. It's
Like a bird's eye
like a,
view?
no, like a plan view, but that's not like,
Not the oblique.
well, what I'm trying to get a sense is you have different elevations that are at the surface, right? And I'm trying to look and understand exactly what's happening at each location at the surface, and and based on what's in the packet. What I really want to see is looking down, what's happening in between the buildings. I know where the pool area is, I know where the parking and the main mass is, but where,
At different elevations,
yeah,
I mean, levels.
like C1.00, that shows your ground floor with your parking. But
Yep.
I don't have a view of that shows the buildings
Yeah, let's
above
see.
it.
Start scrolling through the whole plan set. We'll find them for you. You know what pages those are on?
I
guess
It'll narrow it down, but
And
just
on the landscape plans, it's all grayed out. I mean, you have the L 2.05, which
So we're just looking for like these sheets.
I
the
think
sheets that are
probably
just
maybe
Essentially.
that's what does it.
the plan view of the,
Anthony,
not of
do you
the
have a
parking.
You know what, if you go to L 2.05, I think that does it.
Okay.
So is the pool elevation at the same level as L 2.05 or is it down lower?
I don't know what L 2.05 is, so I'll answer a different way. The pool elevation is at the same elevation as the podium, but it is not on the podium. It is off the podium, built into the hillside, for a couple of reasons. Obviously, we don't want to introduce water if we don't have to onto the podium, but also there's that fall hazard. And so we thought we would build the pool into the hillside, kind of create that mountain modern feel, utilize the kind of background of the mountain. So yep,
Yeah.
there's a better.
it's below.
All of that is on the same level, right?
yes,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
all of this is the same level. This.
Yep.
And this is the same level.
Yep.
This will be common area space, so like a clubhouse lounge.
Mhm.
And they're not like just big wide open decks. There are planters that are raised. There are some walls around some of the turf areas to help break up those areas. It's not just a big flat open area.
And those were the renderings we were looking at when I commented the wood decking
Yeah,
and things.
so the rendering I think you were looking at was intended to be this space, but it's not dissimilar this way. So you'll have the individual unit patios that are fenced off. Looking this way, you have like this turf area. This is the fitness center, indoor outdoor turf. And then a indoor outdoor yoga studio. From this direction, we have a dual fireplace, double wall fireplace. And then we have fire pits, barbecues, all down this area. This is like different seating. Kind of a viewpoint. There's also gonna be like, cornhole and other kind of areas.
And all of the turf is artificial turf, it looks like.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, sounds like there's not a lot of other questions. Are there any other questions?
Gonna review the electrical plans. We got those.
All right, let's get it.
Dive in.
HVAC is fun too.
So, here are my comments that I would like to, see. We talked about the tree spacing. I think we need to just work with staff and the future plans on the tree spacing. Where we are missing the trees, along that building, I think it's important that we incorporate those into, that space. Where that little pie-shaped area is that we talked about, just to soften that a little bit, and make it more comfortable. I am concerned as I look at the landscape, particularly along the roadway. When I look at the shrub plantings, it's extremely homogeneous. It's like it looks like it's a grass in a grid pattern, the same grass along the entire roadway. So maybe if we go to a plan, I can show you. So if you start at L 2.01.
Get that up again.
Yeah, it's probably worth going into, sorry to interrupt, the detailed landscape plans too, because these are so large, it's hard to see the detailed. Yeah, that might help.
So if you look under the trees in the park strip, it's just a grid of the same single plant all the way along there. And then if you continue following the plan to the next plan sheet, you have the same kind of planting all the way around all the buildings with no variety. It's just that grid pattern of the same plant all the way along it. And
Specifically, sorry, just so on this roadway section, like in these islands? Or,
These, right?
up against the
'cause I-
building,
okay, yeah, right here.
up against, if you look, it's
Yeah,
just-
that's all the same. Gotcha.
it's all the same and, one, I don't think it's very responsive to the site. And two, I think it's just not very interesting. I mean, you can do a lot more with that than just stamp out a grid pattern all the way along there. And that's pretty consistent. I mean, even, yeah, they switch at the intersection, they switch to a different variety of, I think grasses, but it's the same thing if you go the other way on that same sheet.
It turns the corner.
That's fine.
See, the variety changes, but it's just the same planting. There's no variety, there's no interest, it's just really homogeneous. And I think that needs to be relooked at and something, I think you're gonna have problems because you're gonna have plants that die out and then you're gonna have patchy holes in it. And we can just do a lot more with that, with a variety of shrubs and accents in those areas to soften the buildings. When I looked at the hillside establishment plan, which is a couple more sheets in the package, let's go to that. It would be L 4.0. I'm really happy with what's being proposed. I'm concerned that it is non-irrigated. I'm not interested in it being long-term irrigated, but I am concerned with planting shrubs and trees that they're not going to get established and you're going to lose them all. And then you'll have to come back and replace them over and over. So my recommendation would be to provide some supplemental irrigation to get those trees and shrubs established and then wean it off over a period of time, could be like 5 years. So that they can survive on the natural precipitation.
Well, do a drip system, right?
Yeah, like a drip system, a point drip system to those. I think I would hate to see you invest in all those trees and shrubs and then lose them all.
Well, is there anything wrong with having a drip system?
I would just note that is fine to explore that, subject to geotechnical and geologic
Mhm.
approval.
Right,
And yeah, you're not gonna plant trees and have them live if you don't have supplemental irrigation of some kind. Whether you have somebody hand water it until they're established or something, so.
yeah, they're worried
Yes.
about big rainbirds, flooding, but drip system would be very isolated. And I agree, it's gonna die, and there's dead right now, everything on the hill. So,
There is no hill.
As far as like the seeded areas.
It's a bowl.
Where you're going in and seeding, if you seed it in the fall, or you seed it in the early spring while you're still getting the rains, it'll get established and it'll be okay. You might need to come in and do some supplemental reseeding after. But your trees and shrubs are not gonna make it.
It's probably worth noting too, that we will obviously work with the landscaper to have a plan for contingencies on trees, bushes, shrubs, grass, whatever it is that dies. To Mike's point, could be cost prohibitive to irrigate the entire hillside as well as an issue with the geological hazards. So we'll have to work with.
Well, and I'm not suggesting that you irrigate the entire hillside. What I'm saying, like Neil said, is put in a drip irrigation system that provides water to those shrubs and trees. Let the seeding work for the native areas, but you'll lose every one of those trees and shrubs if you don't have some supplemental irrigation to them.
I can't remember what our plan was. We'll definitely work with Mike on and the geologic hazard team on to refresh what the,
My recollection is that it was discussed and
Yeah.
between Tim Thompson and Adam Ginsberg and IGS, our wall designer. Just significant concerns about irrigation up there.
I'm
But
not
I-
gonna stipulate that you irrigate, I'm
Yeah.
just more saying. My expectation is that you have the trees and shrubs.
understood.
How you get them established. That's on
Yeah.
you, but fair warning, right?
Yeah.
We talked about the 8-foot sidewalk along the roadway. I think that's important. With that, I think it's really important that we maintain a 5-foot park strip, that we don't narrow that park strip to like 3 feet because we won't get any trees to do very well along. We also talked about the areas adjacent to the parking where we only have a 5-foot or a 5-foot sidewalk. I think there's 2 options there. One is you widen the sidewalk to 7 feet. The other option is you offset the sidewalk 2 feet with or 3 feet and then have a landscape strip there. Obviously, you can't plant it solid because you need areas where people can walk through. But you could do some native plantings along there and it would soften that parking area. And then we talked about providing the landscape areas at all of the ends of the roadway parking. And then add tree, so if you could go to this plan will work, go to the roundabout at the bottom left corner. Right there, so it's shown in white right now, you have the trailhead area, then you have that white area of turf. And then behind it, you have those native landscape areas that are rendered in the.
Okay.
Yeah, right in there. I think, I would like to see some trees in that area and in the area on the other side of the path.
I think
I'm not
that
sure why they're
specific
not there.
area, we couldn't do, I think. This specific area, we couldn't because of fire and Rocky Mountain Power. That was the reason the trees were not added to that area. But we would be happy to oblige in other areas. I think that was an access point for building fire, security and utilities.
Anything that you can do to visually soften that whole corner with some vertical plantings, I think would be helpful. I'm not, I understand the restrictions that you're talking about, but if you can look at maybe strategically planting some trees in there and I think that would be really beneficial to the project. Those are my comments.
I mean, just along that building is some serious grading.
Yep.
And I had no idea how you're gonna plant that or do anything. I mean, it's, anyway, so you still got work to do to figure out whether it's rock areas or whether it's,
It's figured out. It's retaining walls. It's all, it's
Oh.
done. There's 700 pages of documents. We can go
Okay.
through it. Yeah.
but that's a serious
Mhm.
grading thing right there.
Yep, understood.
And that's a drainage area,
Yep.
and where does it go? Yeah, but anyway, I'm sure you thought about all that.
Yeah, the detention, retention, drainage plan on this site is not insignificant. The retainage and detention ponds are massive and
Where is the
underground.
retention ponds?
Far west side.
Around here.
Almost this entire area is underground retention.
Underground retention?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, in,
Subsurface, yeah.
In
Yeah.
chambers, yeah,
yeah,
Into what?
in chambers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
but that's taking the
Be a
whole hill
large
behind you?
chamber.
There it is,
Are
right there.
you figuring water the whole?
Yep.
Hill
Correct,
behind
the
you?
whole hill, the entire site is being taken into
Whoa.
account into that chamber system.
Any other comments?
No, but, could you make that the proposal or the? I don't want to
Well,
repeat it.
as the chair, I can't make a motion, so I would encourage someone else to make a motion if you want to include these, state it. I'm happy to provide my notes to this staff.
How do you read his notes?
Can we go back to the architectural materials a little bit? I'm wondering if. What, is it possible to get more, like a sample board or more detail? I mean, I looked up the El Dorado stone on their website and I got a photo on my computer, but. Why that couldn't be part of a packet. And a submittal to this group. I understand if you're waiting for Rimrock to decide on what material that actually, that meets the budget, I get how that goes, but I think at some point, this is an important enough building that the architectural materials should be reviewed for what they are actually going to be, rather than the sort of hypothetical
That's a good point. There's a lot of it.
design.
Yeah. I mean, that could still be, approval subject to coming back later to have us to take a look at it,
Material board.
material board.
Yeah, I've never gone back to an arc with a material board. I'm not opposed to it. Usually how it works for us is we'll take the materials board to our contractor and I feel stupid even saying that. You guys are all professionals in the field, so you already know this, but we'll work with the team on site to come up with a rendering, an on-site kind of mock-up. And we make sure that they jive perfectly in person before we do anything on site. So I'm not opposed to having eyes on that. My only hesitation with that is that we've already built a building and then we potentially invite criticism then.
We've only done that a few times.
Well, I think they're just saying to submit a material board of what you have specified within the drawings
Okay,
and
Yeah.
then you would be responsible for adhering to that.
I mean,
I don't think we need to see a mock.
yeah, I don't wanna see a mock-up and I don't
Okay.
wanna delay anything. I just.
Yeah,
Feel like, I looked up the materials on their websites, but I can't actually find the metal panel that you specified on the unique.
It's a custom panel.
Okay,
that would be
We've
like.
actually ever made it before.
okay, yeah, cause they also don't have a 20 gauge like you mentioned, so. They have a 24 and well, I guess if it's custom, they can do whatever they're gonna do,
I
but
have those samples in my office. It's very thick.
I mean. Whatever the best way is to proceed efficiently,
Would that be easily?
I just don't think.
Like,
it's not
for you all
easily. I think that's the point. So we'd be happy to figure out some path forward. I think the physical materials and kind of getting to that point is more challenging and difficult.
Okay.
But I don't want to be obstinate, so I want to figure out how we can come up
think
with
it-
something.
I think it's difficult too to present a material board. And like was mentioned, you then go through this submittal process with the contractor. And if we're then held to that material board, that makes it slightly difficult to match that material board
Exactly.
perfectly,
I don't-
right? So,
I don't think the intent is
Okay.
to hold you to
No.
a specific
yeah,
thing.
No,
I think we're just trying to get a better understanding of what you're thinking right
Yeah.
now. That's.
the actual
that's
look,
all.
feel, scale,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's all that would be.
But you'll probably want that for yourself to get an initial understanding of what the materials are.
Agreed. I guess in our world, that process happens in 6 to 9 months from now. When we get those materials and we start working through that process, once we have, a shovel in the ground. And I guess that's where
We
we
could,
differ.
some options is they could bring a material board in at that time. We could say, before you go vertical, you could issue a permit, get through footing, foundation, whatever else, and then at some benchmark. Turn that in and we could bring it back to the meeting. We could have that available for ARC members to come view at that time and provide feedback.
I personally think that doesn't work really. I mean, I'm totally with the process 6, 9 months out, no, we don't want to see it. You need to be moving. And, you know, you're right, I don't know how, it's just that I'm used to though, to get as architects, we will prepare a material board to start with. Okay, I mean, that's common interior, exterior and everything. And then it gets then shopped out and then modified.
Understood, yes.
So at least something, but I don't know if you have something now that you have put together.
So just to be clear, the board that we provided that has the materials, you want a physical, something physical. The difference is the board we
Just like
provided is.
A photo
online.
of,
Okay,
a photo of.
it's like a
shows-
digital.
We can come up with
Okay.
a photo of
Of all
every
the,
sample.
of all the
That's
samples.
perfect.
that-
If that will work,
That's all
but
I
a physical sample is what the barrier is for us, I think.
Oh, okay, no, just the photos, that's.
It
good
was all
enough.
coming from China.
It might have sunk in the ocean, we don't know.
So, yeah,
Paris.
I mean, the photo is fine.
That
Great.
reviewed by email? Is that?
Yes.
Fine,
Okay, that's great.
and is that pre-permit issuance? Is that pre-vertical construction?
I think you want to do that now,
Pre-permit.
right?
I mean, I think Anthony,
We'd love to get this
we can
done.
send that out within
A week.
next
Okay.
couple of
Based on
days.
design samples, I can get that, that's not.
Okay, that's great.
And it probably won't be a board, I mean, a lot of these samples, you're gonna wanna see decent sizes, so it might be a box, but.
That's okay, yeah.
No, it'd be
Well, I
good.
think you're just talking about having a photo and submitting a photo of it to us, right?
Yeah,
Not physically delivering it.
Yeah,
either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
A photo
photo's fine.
sample
Digital.
that accompanies the materials board.
Digital material.
Got
Got it.
So, what I would recommend on that is, first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming and for the work that you have put into your applications, and it's really been great to work with you guys from the beginning, and the thoroughness and your willingness to really do meet what we are trying to do. I think all of us, our intent is to develop a really great project. So I really want you to know we appreciate it, especially with the complexity of this project and the complexity of the site. We recognize. it's
We hope you know
not
we feel the
a
same.
Project,
So thank you.
yeah. I think what I would recommend is that we get a motion for certificate of design compliance, and then subject to review of the materials board via email. And if there's no, similar to like how we handle the meeting minutes, if there's no negative comments within 5 days
Mhm.
of them being sent to us, then it's approved. That way we can get through the process. My sense is, and I'm speaking for me, but my sense is that we're basically comfortable with the materials. We just want,
It's great.
something a little bit more. I don't want to speak for you, but that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion?
but how do we get your list?
I've got them written down.
He's got it,
You
and
got
I'll
it?
give him this, and
Okay,
it's on the,
Subject to the notes made by the
on-
chair, if you're making.
can we, I would make a motion that we, approve subject to the notes that Mike has taken from Scott. I think, and put that forward to be approved.
as well as submit a
Well,
materials
yeah,
board with photos
Yeah.
of the actual materials.
yeah, that was part of the motion, yeah. And those would be submitted, yeah, like you say, by photo, and we have meeting minutes to time to approve them. Because we don't want to wait another month or two.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, we have a motion. Any questions on the motion?
Well, second,
We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
now you just gotta build it.
Yeah, finish those retaining walls first.
What do you think your timetable is? That's always a great question.
Great question. Not being presumptuous on building permit plans. We'd love to put a shovel in the ground in September. The apartments.
Love it.
Gotta get it before the snow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's that all retaining walls go beautifully and we don't find any dino bones and nothing weird happens, right? So no more fault lines come up. We're trenching for a few more faults, finishing up a few more geohazard items on site, kind of rounding out some of those items. So it could be a little while.
The racket club had several fault lines, didn't
Oh,
they?
yeah,
throughout?
that whole east bench of the city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you have cut it in, right? I mean, you excavate for the parking structure right now. And you're gonna get geotech investigation.
That's a requirement, yeah.
And then you find one, then you gotta figure it out. huh?
The apartment parking structure and faults are all done, actually. That's all already been taken care of. So kind of the
But it's just when you're digging it, you're gonna find stuff. maybe.
And that's already dug, so you
Oh.
really should drive up just Gun Club Road and look, you can see kind of the crazy looking building
Oh,
footprint
yeah.
of the
Yeah,
apartments and the
that's
cul-de-sac, it's all laid out there already.
Yeah, so you don't have, you don't have any surprises.
No surprises in the apartments, so the condo faults, are being trenched next, hotel and a couple additional retail pads, so. We have enough fault trenching that hopefully we know where they are and kind of the angles, but. I don't know, Wild West out there, so,
It's
Yeah.
a challenging side, isn't it?
yeah, it's challenging, but it's a really
It's
cool
gonna be
thing.
cool.
Yeah, it should be really fun, we're excited to get to work on it. so.
Clarification.
Yeah.
I brought up the landscape plan along the streetscape and
Yeah,
I would like to see how you resolve that.
yeah,
But I think we can handle it the same way.
Same process.
we'll just, what we'll do from this is I took thorough notes, but we'll obviously follow up with Mike tomorrow. We'll get our landscape guys, our whole team together and we'll work on a resubmission in the next week or so. We're not trying to
Yeah.
table any of this. So Mike will have plans if we need to break out a set that's specific for you guys, that's, just a couple of pages. Happy to. We can figure out what that looks like.
I just want that revised landscape plan to. I can handle it the same way.
Okay.
Understood?
Anything else?
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Appreciate it.
With that, we'll move on to item 3.0, which is the consent agenda. Item 3.1, approval of the minutes for April 24th, 2025. I need a motion that the Architecture Review Commission will approve the minutes after the process that is identified on the agenda.
A motion to approve that? I will approve that motion.
Okay. Basically, what it's saying is that they'll issue the meeting minutes. We'll have 5 days to review it. If there's no comments, they're approved. If not, it'll continue in the same process.
I make a motion to approve that process.
Perfect. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Well, that's an easy one. Yeah.
Was that a motion, Nils?
Yes, that was.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second from Scott. All in favor? Aye.